What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Saturday, August the 3rd, SummerSlam Saturday. It's the final SummerSlam in which we'll only be able to watch it for one night over the weekend. In the near future, my friends, it'll be a whole weekend of SummerSlams. And I'm excited about that, as I am to break down both SmackDown and our little preview here of SummerSlam today. I've got the wickedest crew in the world. It's not Thursday, but are we back or what? We are so back. First and foremost, I'm going to send this one out to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to our head of opinions, good friend of mine, recent viewer of an Arsenal game live and in person. Shout out Ben Allison. Anthony Ricciardi, what's good?
All right. We're a few short hours away from SummerSlam, and we had SmackDown last night. Let's just get into it.
Absolutely. They've been playing sports all day to ask the Olympics. Up next, though, in the DMV, not motor vehicles related. I know I say this every week now, but it's too fun for me because I spend some time at the DMV. Don't go get a real ID unless you really need one because it takes too much dang time. But right out in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, that DMV, get your twos up for a good friend of mine. Not two phones today, but two shows. Shoddy, what's good?
What's good? What's good? What's good? I am never here on Saturdays, but it's SummerSlam Saturday, like you said. You know what we repping, man. It's Tiffy time. Hopefully she cashes in. We'll talk everything about SmackDown. Uh, Fun show. I actually had to watch SmackDown for the first time in a while, forcefully. It was fun though. It was cool. Let's get into it.
It's definitely one of those things that is, sorry, late camera cut there. Oh, not even the right one. Definitely one of those things that is worth discussing in every way. I mean, look, SmackDown I enjoy most Friday nights, but it is a task at 8 p.m. Pacific on a Friday to go out of your way to watch SmackDown. That is a great point. On the East Coast, also 8 o'clock, same thing, right? So unless I'm not watching it taped, it's a big ask. It's a big ask in a lot of ways. But let's get into our first topic. This is one that you might hear us discuss just a skosh over on Sunday Spotlight tomorrow when it releases. But the Unholy Union versus Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, filled with shenanigans. Shenanigans. An excellent match. A second quality match out of the Unholy Union this week. Shoddy, I'm going to ask you to break this one down first real quick.
Well, first and foremost, let's just get this blasphemy out the way. Nobody loves Rhea Ripley over here. It's Liv Morgan squad. But okay. This is a tricky one for me because I like a lot and I also dislike a lot. So I'll start with what I like. I like this week for the Unholy Union. I said it on the spotlight, but I'll say it here for you guys to hear. I think this was a course in the correct direction for the Unholy Union. I don't think they have done anything with them since they had their monumental win at Clash. And I think now this feels like a little jump start for them as a team. They got a great win, like you mentioned, on Tuesday against Lash and Jakara. And they got another win today. Now, it does come in heel tactics, and they've added a new member to the group. I also like that. I think Blair Davenport is someone that hasn't had an opportunity to find something that she can really do on SmackDown. And, adding her with Isla and Alba works for me because aesthetically, they look like a faction. It may be them all being European, but being all kind of like on their 2007 My Chemical Romance looking gear. But I like it. I think they mesh together, and I think her kind of being an enforcer, a third like a heavy to those two, works as well. She helps them out, gets the win, and I think this is the right direction for them. We are faction heavy in the women's division on WWE, but when you add a team like them, you add Sonya, Shayna, and Zoe Stark, and then you got Damage Control. These teams aesthetically and they look like a team and they act like a team. Now to Bianca and Jade. I do not like the booking for Bianca Belair as of late. I feel it's been more put into a role where they're using her a lot to kind of get people over and help out other talent and kind of protect Jade in the sense, which is great. But you are really, really giving a woman who is your top dog, in my opinion, in the women's division with Becky and Charlotte being out a lot of L's. And it seems like she's kind of a little farther away from what she was doing a few years ago. And I get it. You can't always be the champion at all time. This is a lot of frustration we always had with Charlotte Flair being champ. Hell, even Becky Lynch at times. But still, I feel like I want to have her in more meaningful stuff rather than just these multi-feuds and, eating L's, taking losses, kind of looking more weak because she is the EST. So I don't like that. I don't know what the direction is with Bianca and Jay, to be honest with you, because I don't personally want to see them be the tag champs again. I think it could be something ready to, kind of jumpstart maybe the deception of them and have them feud at some point. Or are we gonna add, maybe a Naomi and make it a 6 woman match kind of ordeal? I feel like it may go on that latter part, but I'm kind of growing tired of them being the focal point of this tag feud. I feel like they're so talented as single stars, and that's why I kind of hope that if we do get it tonight, a Nia Jax is a champion, or maybe if
Yeah.
Tiffany Stratton cashes in, we'll have a heel champion, and I think a Bianca would be an incredible first opponent for one of those two, rather than rinse and repeat the whole situation with Bailey. Or if we let Bianca go heel, it's how you cut it up. But I think that she should be on the main card feuding with a woman because she is that, and that's even to that point. Before I finish my take, uh, that's more meaningful for her is being a single star and helping somebody. Get a win over her in that way, rather
Yeah.
it be this whole tag team stuff. I don't think you're getting a lot from it.
Well, that's what I was gonna add. Is I think you made a great point there, talking about the team scenario when it comes to like what we're looking at here. As great as Jade and Bianca have been together, if last night wasn't the night, when is?
Yeah.
And how much longer can we sustain this? And I think that is very logical there.
Too many ebbs and flows if we're gonna book it for later on.
And
You you should have just had them as a dominant tag champs for a while and then break it up in that way.
right. And to that point, the other factor is so we have a DQ generally tells you the rivalry's not over. You're not
Yeah.
going to end a rivalry on a DQ. But how much steam is left in this? Right? If not last night, then when? And when we start getting to that point, it is where it gets dicey. Anthony, how would you personally solve this situation when it comes to that? There's a lot of questions around when do you have Jade and Bianca turn on each other? I don't know that that necessarily is the route coming out of this rivalry with the unholy union, but it does feel like a matter of time, especially to Shad's point about both being legitimate challengers potentially for the world title.
I think they had a number of problems with this. I've said this before, the women's tag division, they've never really cared. And I get they're trying to build it up, but the problem is you gave Jade and Bianca the titles right away. You can have them as dominant champions, but you don't have any real teams to have them feud with. And then you had them lose the titles. Jade was green to begin with, and a lot of it got exposed as she's more seen in the public eye in WWE as she was compared to what she was in AEW. I don't know if Jade's ready for a solo feud with Bianca. I think that's part of it too, that they haven't pulled the trigger because they're like, Jade's not going to be able to hold up in this feud. Like, I think they want Jade to be at a certain point where they're like, okay, this feud could live up to the hype. I think that's the big thing. And again, I don't know if they're using them as the linchpins to try to build that tag division because there really isn't much there. I don't know if that's the reason for it or they're just dragging this out for a bigger show. I mean, there's a number of things with it. I just don't know. I don't know. It could be as simple as they don't know what they want to do with it. They know they want them to face each other, but they don't know when to pull the trigger. I don't know. They have so many fish to fry with different things. I don't know if they know what they're doing. You're on mute.
It is true. That's a really good point, is what I meant to say there. I was muted, but we've got a bunch of comments here as well. We've got Soul suggested turn on each other during the Rumble and match at Mania. Okay, tough to stretch it that far.
That's
Kafkaske added Bianca turns on Cargill after losing their match at Bash in Berlin.
Okay.
That I would be okay with.
The thing is this, right? And it's hard because to Kafkaske, that would be sick. That'd be dope. But are they ready for that match out the gate, right? To
Right.
Soul's point, you can book that and then make it a Mania match, but how do we extend them for the next? Because when is the Rumble? Like January, right?
That would be January, yeah.
So we got like 5 months. That's a lot of time in regards to booking wise, to do something. If it's not like you can't, I don't know. It's it's difficult. There, SmackDown could use a game changer, and that could be a Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte could kind of be the cog that can
Inject
kind
some
of
life.
inject some life because I think if any, that's like the perfect big time opponent for Jade because I think Charlotte can kind of clear up a lot of that. Oh, is she a good worker stuff out the way? You're gonna get a good match with Charlotte Flair, and that's a big time opponent for Jade. And if Jade can beat her, or even her and Bianca, like there's a ways to kind of go through it. But I think they just need to like get them away from this tag title.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And I think it's run its course, for lack of a better way to put it. That's the way that I would say it. While I've enjoyed the storyline thus far and the pairing between Bianca and Jade, it's finally got to the point where it's run its course and their backs are both against the wall in the sense of that's the match we actually want to see. That's where we're at, is Bianca versus Jade.
February 1st is the Rumble apparently from Kev Koske.
Oh, that is interesting. First non-January Rumble in ages. Great call.
Dang,
I love that.
That's even longer.
That's even longer. It's a lot of time. Now, let's move on to our next one. What do we want to talk about? No choice here. Just like Cody Rhodes, we never talk about what I want to talk about. So we're going to talk about what Cody Rhodes ended up having to talk about and maybe got goaded into, because it's Bloodline rules, my friends. It is Bloodline rules. And I like everything about that because Cody needs a challenge. Except for that, he's already overcome the worst case scenario when it comes to Bloodline rules, and he assembled the Avengers. So is this not just a cheap knockoff of the initial storyline? I'm totally kidding. It's Bloodline rules. I get it. Everybody's going to be after him. Jacob Fatu couldn't be scarier. The Gorillas of Destiny are starting to look better. I don't know if Tonga Loa can connect with a low blow this time, but maybe. If he's worked on his accuracy, I've been watching the Olympics, and you can improve your accuracy when it comes to things like that. But Anthony, I've got to ask you, it's Bloodline rules. Is there any chance in the world Cody Rhodes drops this title this weekend?
No. I mean, Solo's not the guy. I don't think Solo's ever the guy. To be honest with you, I don't see it in him. The fake pretender, tribal chief. It's not believable in the sense of, okay, if I look at it, he's the third most intimidating person in that group. And the only reason he's not last is because Tonga Loa was the last. Jacob Fatu is if you said he was taking the throne as the tribal chief, okay, I believe that. Jacob Fatu is an absolute beast. If it was Jacob against Cody, I'm like, I don't think it would be the right move to drop the belt, but Jacob Fatu can do a heck of a run with it. They made it Bloodline rules to have different people thrown in there. Tongalo will probably miss whatever he tries to use. Maybe they'll bring in the big brother of theirs as they continue this, and then ultimately Roman's going to come back and clear house and help Cody win this thing. Is ultimately where it's going. I think that's essentially why it was made Bloodline rules, and it would be fitting that Roman left Bloodline rules, came back Bloodline rules. I don't know if that's done for a reason, but there's a connection there.
That would be fascinating. By the way, that is a great call, Anthony. I did not consider that this would be an avenue for Roman. And just the tease, even if it doesn't happen this afternoon, is probably worth it, to your point. I think that that's the most logical way you could possibly break down the direction that they've gone here. It's like, I mean, Kafkowski added, we got 2 matches on SummerSlam with no defined rules. And then also Bobby Petito added, do you guys think The Rock shows up tonight at SummerSlam?
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
I don't think either one is in the cards. Roman. I still don't think it's Roman. I would love it to be Roman.
The Rock will be back either Survivor Series or the Rumble.
Yeah. That, Anthony, that is super logical there. And I think if we got Roman tonight, I would actually like to personally see it outside of Bloodline rules. So let's have the match go down, and then Roman comes out to address Solo post-match when they fail. If and when they fail. This is the perfect time for a classic wrestling. I don't want to call it a cliche because it's not, and he's one of my favorites of all time. This is an Owen Hart finish match. Some sort of roll up from Cody, get out of there. The Bloodline's in shambles. And then dun, 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 dun. All of a sudden, that music hits. And it's the tribal chief, the real one. The one that we all were waiting for. That's the only way I could see them doing this, where it makes sense. As a betting man, and I'm an admitted gambler.
We'll see.
I'm not betting on it, but I would be absolutely tantalized by that scenario. But with that shot, we've got Andrade and Carmelo Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I love Melo so much from his work in NXT.
Yeah.
I think Andrade is consistently overlooked.
Oh, yeah.
But can we have these two not muddying each other's waters?
Yeah.
Is there a scenario where maybe they wrestle in a position to advance themselves up the card and not just wrestle each other and keep themselves in the same place?
Right.
And it might be my most frustrating booking thing that I have with SmackDown right now. I didn't have any problem with their interactions, with their match. I've had no problems with their interactions. But can we get better for Melo and Andrade?
Yeah, it's a little difficult because I'm not going to lie. The match, you're going to get a high quality match. I mean, it's Carmelo Hayes, it's Andrade, two of the best in the world. Andrade, honestly, may be one of the best professional wrestlers in the entire planet. The stuff that he can do at his size is remarkable, and I think people lose focus of that sometimes. Where you just look at it, you're like, man, I forgot how good that guy is. But I mean, they had a stellar match just like the last one, and yeah, it goes in losing fashion for Carmelo Hayes. Uh, my only like idea would be that this is to help for the time being Andrade move up the card, kind of build him up a little bit, make him a viable threat for whoever the next match is. Is it going to be a potential United States champ if it's a LA Knight? Hopefully LA Knight, not Logan Paul. Or is it going to be him versus Cody down the road? I'm not entirely sure, but I think they're trying to build a little bit of steam off of him. And on Carmelo Hayes' side, I feel like they need to let Melo kind of get back into that bag that he was in the Trick Williams feud after he, lost the belt and Trick was going for the belt against Ilya, where he's just gonna do anything to get to some sort of right course correction, and that's what they need because both of these guys are super talented, and you can really make a case that Carmelo Hayes is such a young, up and coming star where he could potentially be a viable opponent for Cody Rhodes. They worked well together. I think like the character, charisma, all of there has been shown in NXT. It just has been a little bit of a confusing booking with him where I know he's still the new guy and I know Triple H has kind of done that with a few people. Same with Ilya. You give them premier matches, and it's always a losing effort, but they do so well that you still have a taste to want to see them wrestle more. But you run the risk that the fans can kind of be like, "Why should I care about him? He's a notorious loser." So it's one of those cases where you got to really be careful. I would let this be the end of it. I mean, he got 2 wins over him. There's no reason for a rubber match. Let Carmelo Hayes beat on some other people on the card and build up steam. Andrade, we'll see who he goes against. I still want to see him in. I feel like him and Santos is still a hot feud that could happen, but I like Andrade as a heel better though too, man. Like
Yeah,
I've always liked him as a heel when he was with Zelina Vega too.
I'm with you
Um,
much. Andrade works way better as a heel
yeah.
than he does as a face. And I agree with you from a
even
working
even his
standpoint.
even his aesthetic, like him coming out with the black mask and everything, like he's got like a heel look to him. You know what? Let me say this too, man. I know a lot of people like to use the whole BS about he can't speak because he don't speak English. There's ways to make someone good without having them to cut some fiery promo in English. Like talking doesn't make everything. Like he can talk well enough. If you're trying to have him cut some super
It's
big
true.
promo versus LA Knight or something like that, yeah, that's a dumb way to use him. But like you see people who don't speak English as their first language, and he speaks English well enough. It ain't like he can't speak the language. Like he says stuff that are slick lines. Like when he told
Yeah,
the thing to Mello a few weeks ago. Like I think he's viable to do that, and just think he's better as a heel.
100%. I'm with you on that. We've got a few comments to run through here too. Bobby Petito, good friend of the show. Shout out, Bobby. What's up? What is next for Carmelo Hayes? Continuing the feud with Andrade or do something else? I think do something else is kind of the consensus here. If based on what Shad was saying there, and then Kafkaska added Andrade should be U.S. champ by the Rumble. I like that idea. And then,
I actually want to see Carmelo Hayes
hey,
be U.S. champ by the Rumble.
100-meter sprint for St. Lucia. That's actually amazing. I've been super into the Olympics. I'm sorry I showed
That's
that
dope.
comment on accident, but that's outstanding stuff.
Oh,
Speaking of
nice.
outstanding stuff, though, I've got to do a quick little jam for you guys here. If you were looking for more wrestling content, this is where you need to go. Head over to nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic. All of our content across all platforms linked in one place. There's a thriving wrestling community inside of the app. It's really easy to find. You can see all of our good stuff. You can see a bunch of other people's good stuff, but mostly focus on ours if you don't mind. And you'll enjoy it. Trust me, no gimmicks, no nothing. Absolutely free. But let's keep it moving. Let's keep it rolling. And let's get into our final segment of this afternoon, my friends. Let's talk about do it yourself against the Bloodline. And did they do it themselves? Kind of. I mean, they did things themselves. But this is where it's interesting. So the Bloodline wins the tag titles. And that's great. That's great. We're dialed. Now, they're all powerful. But why? Why in the world did we squash DIY, who we took 2 years to build to that point? And what do we do now with the rest of the tag division? Putting a dominant belt on a division as shallow as the WWE tag team division has never made sense to me. Because now it's commandeered. Now we're screwed. Now it's who's the challenger, and none of them are believable. Till we make one believable eventually. But there is no pool. It is, I hate to be the guy that sits here and harps on the tag division and why we don't make it work. But seriously, there are so many talented tag teams. There are so many talented tag wrestlers. Tag team wrestling is very entertaining. Stop with these scenarios where nobody can beat the champion holding the belts until they finally do. That doesn't work anymore because we can see it telegraphed. We can see it in execution when it happens, and it bugs me. It bugged me because I knew last night the result before the bell rang, and it's just frustrating. Does it mean I dislike the Bloodline? Absolutely not. No, I think it was the logical decision, and once the match was booked, it's the only route I would have gone. But my complaint is there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. Shad, your thoughts on last night's segment with the Bloodline, and then obviously you got Bloodline rules today, but the tag team division in general.
All right, let me start with the match. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's a dang
My
good match.
my twin is a champion now. The Fatu family. We are here, baby. We got gold all around. I'm gonna take a picture of my fantasy football belt and pose like Jacob Fatu and say it's me. We here, but in all seriousness, um, it's it is definitely a tricky booking situation because I think the moment is what made people a lot more upset. DIY, I don't even think they had the belt for a month. It was like 29 days or something like that. Very short period of time. This is Cleveland. This is Johnny Gargano's hometown. He's you know, stupidly a Cleveland Browns fan. I don't know why people would root for the Browns, but that's a decision he's got to live with. But he lost in his home turf. They had the little promo backstage, how they do him kissing Candace and the baby and Indy over there. And then he got dog walked. He got dog walked in Cleveland Brown fashion. He got dog walked just like his favorite team in Cleveland, and it's it's unfortunate. I do feel bad for him, and I do feel bad for the direction of DIY because I do think they were starting to click a little bit more as a tag team, and now you just completely broke it down. And I don't know exactly what you do with them. I've always like I'm gonna be real with y'all. I loved DIY and NXT, or I like them a lot in NXT. I haven't been a big fan of them on the main roster. I don't know what it is. It just has not clicked for me. And it looked like it's doing a little bit better, but I'm not, I don't have like a big like sentiment where I'm like, oh, because I
Those
feel
guys deserve better.
they,
To your point, yeah, it's like, no.
I mean, they deserve better within the moment, but when you got to think about the bigger picture, Jacob Fatu is just he's a guy, bro. He's one of those guys you want to push to the moon, and a situation like that, giving him gold, them kind of at the moment rolling through the tag division, it makes sense to me. I feel like you got to put position to the top people at the end of the day, and the problem is, like you said, there's not a lot of viable threats in the tag division, but that's that's kind of the situation we're at. It's not something that gets fixed overnight at the end of the day, right? Like, okay, let DIY have been champions, right? They're gonna run course matches with all of the people, Legato, the Street Profits, all of that. No one's gonna be invested to it. Everyone's gonna get bored by it because
Yeah.
there's not, like you said, there's not the care for it. But if their booking is to get something for the care for it, I have no problem giving it to the Bloodline because they can. It's a different bloodline, and it's just I like seeing Jacob Fatu.
To your point, the Bloodline is the most logical choice in this scenario.
They're the most star-studded team at the moment, booking
By
wise.
far. And we've got Kafkoske. I accomplished something. He goes, I really agree with Clark on this one. Someone write that down. We need that. Keep that, archive that. We need that for the future. Not many people do very often, but I love it.
No,
we can't keep having champions who are unbeatable because of the storyline and not actual tag dominance. I love that. And that's kind of my point. Because to your point,
and I let me say that I do agree with you wholeheartedly on that point too. It doesn't do anything for the belt, but I'm speaking of a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation in WWE.
yes,
They're not gonna if they don't have if I don't see them trying to fix it. What can you do at this point, right?
it's so true. It's so true. I mean, even Bobby Petito added like, "Hey, Jimmy and Jey Uso could be the tag team to beat the Bloodline." I love that suggestion, Bobby. The worst part about it is that's arguably the greatest tag team in WWE history, and they're not currently a tag team.
And one of them is on Raw.
It's like, right? Like,
As a
that's
single
like,
star.
I love the idea of building to that, but we got to get there. And I think there needs to be a little bit more. And this is not Bloodline related. The Bloodline story has been very concise.
Yeah.
And I don't think it gets enough credit. But tag team wrestling wise, we need to give the tag teams the time to actually develop. I mean, even Pretty Deadly, bless Ben for he's a huge fan of Pretty Deadly and whatnot. But there was a build. They were wrestling every week. They were heelish. They were cheating. They were doing all of those things and winning often. A little more of that outside of the title picture.
I'll be honest with you. I think there should only just if there may just only need to be one tag team belts.
I think so too, but
Kind of
the
like
problem
how the
is then
belts are,
when there was one tag team belt, we were complaining about. I agree with you. I think there should be one, but I think a division needs to be built truly with depth, where there are tag team rivalries that aren't only around the titles.
Yeah.
Some more tag team rivalries where it's two tag teams and it's two people that hate each other.
Right.
And we want to see them fight because we want to see them fight. It's simplistic in nature.
There's a lot of makeshift,
but it's harder in execution.
Like why the hell are Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin a tag team?
Precisely. How did they become friends? It's the same thing I've said about damage. I used to say about damage control. Why are they friends? Tell me, explain. Why are they friends? How did they meet? What created their bond? Why do they have each other's back? Seriously. Because you don't just have everybody's back all the time. That's not a normal, right? You don't just go like, yeah, I got them, right? No. Why are they willing to put their own safety in jeopardy to defend their friend? There's so much storytelling inside of tag team wrestling that is unturned. It just straight up bothers me. DIY's reign was DIY's reign. One of the best stories in NXT history is DIY. We've told nothing remotely close to that on the main roster. And if we're operating under the assumption that we all know that happened, you're just hoping at that point. And that part of it is really frustrating to me. So, Anthony, I got to ask you, because I know you know DIY as well as anybody in their history and whatnot. What does this even mean for them coming out of this matchup? And what does it mean for the tag team titles as a whole?
I mean, tag team wrestling as a whole in wrestling has really taken a downturn. They're teams, but neither the two big companies are using them. Uh, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Young Bucks haven't defended the AEW title since they've won the things. And the two tag titles in WWE really have not really materialized. I mean, DIY is a great team, two great guys in real life. You could have built a tag division that mattered around them. You had the teams, you had the gauntlet match. You could have done stuff with this. But no, that's not the decision they went with. They decided the moment DIY won those titles, we all knew they're transitional champions because we need to take them off of the heel tag team that don't like each other but haven't officially broken up yet, and to sacrifice them to Jacob Fatu because, let's be honest, he won them single-handedly. He didn't need a tag partner. The one positive I could say is it was a competitive match. Johnny showed a lot of heart. So did Ciampa against the odds. They knew the odds were against them. It took a lot to get Johnny down, which I thought was at least some saving grace in it. But realistically, it was always the Bloodline's belt. And what I'm concerned is they're just going to tear through all the teams because we all know it's going towards the Uso feud. And then it's like, well, what's left if the Usos win the titles? Because you've already destroyed all the other tag teams. I don't think it was a good move. I don't think you needed the tag titles for the Uso, Jacob Fatu, Tama feud. I know they originally probably wanted the Gorillas of Destiny, but Tonga Loa sucks. So it's not going to materialize. So they went with Jacob instead. Just as a whole, that's where it's going, but it's at a sacrifice to the tag division, but it's trying to promote their biggest story of all time, which was the Bloodline saga. So I think that's why it was done. What happens to DIY after this? They ain't touching the tag titles anytime soon. No one is. Unless they're an Uso, they're not touching it.
It's so spot on, Anthony. Yeah, I am 1000% with you on that. It's like nobody is anytime soon, and not many of them. We have a ton of comments here to run through too. I mean, look, Kafkoske, good friend of the show, with Damage Control are friends because they were available when Triple H took over. I love that. That one was for me. That's why I read that one. Bobby Batista with the Young Bucks still haven't even defended the AEW Tag Team Championship.
They lost the
great point though, because it's not exclusive to WWE. It's tag team wrestling as a whole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They lost to the Acclaimed in a qualifier match. They owe the Acclaim match.
A little bit of a shout out too. Currently, both tag titles are with factions because the factions need the gold and not because they're great teams from Kafka. That's so fair. And then this is interesting. Ega Joseph, new to the show. Thank you for tuning in. I don't love the Bloodline. Interesting. I would say the current iteration, personally. The Bloodline as a whole is hard to dislike.
I don't hate the new Bloodline. I don't hate the new age Bloodline. I don't think they are obviously gonna give you the same feeling as the old regular Bloodline, but I think Solo's doing a solid job personally. I think I'm one of the few people in Wrestling Republic that do think that, but I feel like Solo's done a good job. I think he's playing the role as the Timu tribal chief well, and I think how they've brought in the God and Fatu has been good. I think it's a if there's a little bit more direction to explain why he picked these guys, it could fulfill a little bit more for me. But I have interest in it. And I can understand why they're trying to book them to look strong because you have to make them look as a viable threat for when they do have to go against Roman or whatever it may be.
That's where it's interesting. So before we finally take this home, it's SummerSlam Saturday. It's the final time I can say one day SummerSlam, at least for the near future. Is Roman coming back tonight? Is Roman coming back tonight? Anthony, I'm starting with you. Is he coming back? Yes. You've got Roman's back. Shad, is Roman coming back?
Yeah, I think he comes back. I don't think it's gonna be some big time thing. I think Cody wins, but I could kind of see him pop up at the end and go face to face with Solo, kind of like how we had The Rock and Roman face off that one time too, on the SmackDown.
I think I agree with both of you, other than there's only one way. Roman cannot come back during this match because Roman Cody 3 is then on the table.
Right.
He cannot come back during the match. The match
Actually,
and
after.
the Cody, and it has to be after.
That
is my caveat.
It doesn't have to be after, because the feuds with the Bloodline, who took out Paul, which is bigger than the title for Roman. He wants Solo. It's no.
But here's the issue, Anthony, with that. And I'm not even trying to get into a big thing about it, but so you hit Roman's music, that's a pop. That's your number one priority. Is the second you hit his music, all the attention is off of what's going on and is on him. The second that music plays,
which would happen regardless, whether it's before or after the match, it doesn't matter.
So here's the thing. If it's during the match and you hit the music and he walks slowly down the way that he does, it's no good. So you can't hit the music and have him run in to interfere.
Who says they're going to hit the music?
So he just appears. I've seen the wreck everyone and leave.
He's done
You're
that.
just a freak in a mask. You're not the tribal chief and whatnot. That was also basically post-match. Even though it was the finish of that match in particular, to do that to Cody Rhodes at this point, I think is too much. And we've got a comment over here with Kafkaske, which is Heyman will cause Solo. That would be fascinating because Solo chasing Heyman for the real return to provide the moment, I think from a creative standpoint, makes the most sense. But we could debate that one for absolutely ages because the return of Roman Reigns, no matter how it's executed, will be off the charts, and we all know that, Anthony. Like, there's no doubt about that. But that does bring us to the end of today's show. It's been an absolute blast. Enjoy SummerSlam. Happy Saturday. I still can't believe it's August. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to break down everything you'll see tonight at SummerSlam at noon Pacific. That's 3 in the East. That's 8 in the UK. And, of course, 9 a.m. for my friends over in Hawaii. Have an awesome Saturday afternoon. Enjoy SummerSlam. Enjoy the wrestling. Thank you, everyone that tuned in. Smash like and subscribe. It means the world to us. And we'll talk to everybody soon.